Welcome to the Look Good, Move Well podcast.
I think the concept or the statement that really inspires today's episode to me is, I wish I could eat or drink like that and have the body or the perceived body and feelings and life that this person has. I know I've heard that quite a bit. I've even felt it myself at times. Do you ever feel that? Or do you ever, where does that show up for you, and where have you heard that?
Yeah, absolutely. We were just chatting in the kitchen before starting to record this podcast, and I think the theme for me is that I have been pretty lean my whole life and pretty much been the same clothing size like for decades. And so there's this concept of like, oh, well, you can eat whatever you want and you're fine. You don't like gain weight or change clothing size or, have negative consequences. So it seems. And it's just an interesting topic to dig into, like what is actually going on there and, what is actually behind that statement of like, oh yeah, you can do whatever you want. So why wouldn't you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And like, if you're somebody who can, in quotes, get away with eating a lot of sugar, having dessert every single night, or, whatever the thing, or drinking 3 glasses of wine a night, and I have a great body, and, or by all like standard metrics, like I have a good looking body, like why would you not do that? Because those things are such desirable, again, in quotes, like, indulgences to like have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this has been my personal nutrition theme for quite some time, but I have just an ongoing relationship with sugar cravings where I'll just start ramping up my sugar intake more and more and more without realizing it. And all of a sudden I'm like actually skipping meals and eating candy for dinner and really doing things that you'd be shocked by in the health and fitness world. But then I don't really gain a lot of weight because I'm training and I'm keeping my nutrition in check otherwise and not over consuming calories as a whole. So it's sort of like, oh, well, then, what's the big deal? Why wouldn't I just kind of keep doing that? But in fact, the impacts are really big. And I've just done a recent sort of reset with sugar and taking out sugar and processed foods out of my nutrition without focusing on anything else. Just, going to eat real food basically and not worry about how much. And the difference is profound.
I want to get into that.
Yeah.
And I'm also going to say that it's probably good that I didn't get you the 5-pound bag of Swedish fish for your birthday, which was just last weekend. So, that's good.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yep. So that's why you didn't get a gift from me. There you go.
You couldn't think of anything else.
No, it was Swedish fish or nothing.
It's actually the sandbags at the gym. That's what.
Yes, we did get new sandbags for Satya. But I do, it's sort of like the societal metric that says whether a behavior that's food related is okay or not is like, well, it didn't make me put on weight, or did it make you put on weight? It's like, if it made you put on weight, it's bad. If it didn't make you put on weight, then why would you change it?
Yeah.
And that's like number one. And then 2, 3, 4, 5, all the other ones that come down the list, like there's just such a big gap, I think. It's like, well, I feel like shit in the morning, or like I sleep poorly, or I am not getting, it's replacing good nutrients that I know I need to have, but I'm skipping like my protein, or, you name the whatever it is, but those just fall way, way down the list. There's such a big gap between the physical manifestations of what food, does, or a behavior does, and whether it makes it good or bad.
Yeah. I want to backtrack just a little bit too, because in my own process around making a decision to change my relationship with sugar and getting to the point where it's like, okay, I need to do something about this, there's another psychological aspect that I think goes hand in hand with this, where it's hard to take on in any nutrition change or in any change to your activity level, if you're going to start a new exercise program or anything like that, you have to mentally and emotionally commit to change. And I think that is really a big part of this, because if you're not seeing a lot of negative impacts in different ways and you're like kind of okay with things as they are, you don't have like that pain point where you're like, I gotta change this right now because I have like a wedding in 3 months now, or like whatever, then you have to really come to an agreement with yourself through some means to be like, okay, I'm actually needing to shift this behavior, and not just, I was saying to Marcus earlier that like my default is just to be defeated. My default is just be like, like it's fine. Like I'm not gaining weight, like whatever. Like, and so to actually take on the action of I'm going to actively change this, there has to be sort of a rising of energy and a rising of like commitment and like acceptance that this now needs to happen.
And where do people get that from? Like what I think in many cases it comes from like, you have to get so uncomfortable with like the state of affairs where it's like, yeah, I can't deal with the pain of what I'm dealing with on a daily basis anymore. I'm ready. Like that outweighs the discomfort of like committing mentally, emotionally, physically to some new goal.
Yeah. And I think there has been, I've heard this phrase before, where the pain of change has to be bigger than the pain of staying the same. And I think one thing that we're underscoring with this conversation is that the painful part can be much more in depth than just weight gain.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it almost always is. And what I was kind of trying to make a statement about was that we get too fixated on just the physical look of things. And even as, and that's not to say like, hey, you're, shame on you for not like seeing all the other things that are wrong. It's like, it's just culturally and societally built in so many places that I even fall victim to it sometimes too, where I'm like, and I was sharing this with you, it's like seeing the person or the friend who has a glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine every night, and maybe on the weekends they have a bottle of wine, and they look great, and I'm like, oh, it must be nice to be able to like drink wine every night and have a good bod. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, like I know how I feel when I drink wine like that. No, I don't. I slept, like I had 2 glasses of wine last Saturday night, and it was like, it was a nightmare. It was super fun. It was like a great evening. Like my wife and I were like, we had fun. We like danced with our kids. We like had a ball. And then like basically the next 48 hours, I was like, this sucks. Like I slept bad. Like I had a really tough day on Sunday, and then I was alone with the kids for the next 4 or 5 days. I was like, oh geez. So yeah, but it's even, even somebody who's as attuned to like all of the other aspects or potential downsides to drinking poison, right? Or eating a bunch of sugar, or, like, oh, hey, you stay up until midnight every night and like you're kicking ass. Like, well, maybe I should stay up till midnight every night. It's like, oh no, that's not optimal for me. I know the consequences of that.
And the people who are in our immediate vicinity have a huge impact on those decisions, because
oh gosh,
someone has a particular relationship with alcohol and it seems fine, and you're like, yeah, I could do that too.
Totally.
It seems easy.
Yeah. Well, and then that's just to take it even another step further, where it's like you're in this like environment where you're the people that are in closest proximity to you are impacting you, because, and this is again, it's like the change, like if I stay the same, then there's the pain of being different than the people I'm around.
Yes. And
then our lives are not aligning. But if I change, like maybe there's like a little bit of a drawback on like the physical health front, but like now I'm socially like connected to these people because we're doing the same thing. And that part is really important to me. So, picking the people you want to, you want to be around that align to what you really deeply want for yourself, you know?
And this can happen even within your household, because there have been times when I've been in a different relationship with alcohol or with sugar from my spouse at the time. And that's really major, to be on different paths, but living in the same household.
Yeah. Yeah. And my wife and I talk about it a lot recently, because we've been on like different, we have different energy rhythms, energetic rhythms and circadian rhythms. And, we miss sections of the day because like I'm up early, she's up late, and then it's like, well, where are the kids going to fit into that? Like if they get kind of aligned to her schedule, then I'm missing time with them. But if they're aligned to my schedule and they're up early, I'm spending time with them and she's missing it in the evening. And so how do we align as a family to try and, maximize what we want, and together?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think that there's something around coming to the best path for you, but also having bits of flexibility that allow you to participate in social activities and in other dynamics where, I would like to get to a relationship with sugar where like I don't need to abstain from it 100%, but just feel more in control of it and just feel like, okay, is this factor in my life, whether that's sugar or alcohol or binge eating or anything like that, like, is this sort of the factor that's driving my behavior, or am I in the driver's seat and I get to say when this becomes a part of my life and when it doesn't?
Right. Yeah. It's like the cheat versus treat concept that we've talked about a bit too. It's like, I'm treating myself to this. This is like I have the intention to do this. I want to do this, versus like, this is this cheating thing that I'm like, it's like a bad word. It's like I'm breaking the rules. I'm breaking my own rules by cheating, and most often people who use cheat meals every week, it's like The Rock. It's like, it's not a cheat, bro. It's like, that's your diet.
Yeah.
Like you go Monday through Saturday hard on this program, and Sunday is this program, and it's all your program. So, it's like, I don't love his like, portrayal of that on social media, because it's like it teaches this message of like, look, I'm being bad by doing this. It's like, no, dude, you're being really good. Like you are so dialed in every part of your lifestyle and your work and your health and your fitness, and like you build this in to make all of it so sustainable. Like it's not even a treat. It's like, if you don't do that, you are going to crash and burn. So how could you call it that? But if it's like, what should be like his cheat meal is like on a Wednesday, where he's just like, man, I just blew off work. I'm wasted on this Terramana tequila, and I'm having pancakes right now. It's like, and I wasn't supposed to have this until Sunday. It's like, yeah, let's see that video, Rock. Like, that's the difference of what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
The Rock really cheats. It's like Monday first meeting of the day, shows up wasted. Hi guys.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to sort of dig into this aspect of when the pain of change sort of adds up, because if we're looking beyond weight gain, I want to talk about a few other factors that can come into play, and some of them are obvious, and I think some of them are not obvious. So, and I'd love to hear your take on these as well.
Sure. And before we dive into that, I do want to say this thing about the pain of change and the pain of staying the same.
Yeah.
It's often that like the pain of change is an acute pain that you're going to experience when this change happens. The pain of like sustaining is a slow drip pain.
Yes.
And that's why this is like even a worthwhile topic. If they were both acute pains, like we'd be dealing with the same type of thing. And if they were both like, gradual, like that's why people try and make gradual changes to their lifestyle, because it's like, well, I gradually got to this point and I don't want to like rip the Band-Aid off. The only way I know how is to like gradually come out of it. But we know that has its drawbacks too. It's like, the one small step, it's like, people's momentum is already so strong in this other direction that maybe they need more of a kickstart than just the one step that they can do tomorrow. Like, do one push-up tomorrow. It's like, I know that's a thing, but it's like, I actually need to go into the gym and like kick my ass a little bit just to like get this thing going, get this party started. So, you know, the arriving, staying the same, this is like this chronic, like slippery slope. And now you're going to try and turn it around with something that's measurably steeper. It's going to feel like an acute change that's hard. Yes.
But the flip side of that is that when you do a bigger change, you get more immediate feedback.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, you know, it's like the bigger change, immediate feedback, and then having somebody to guide you when that immediate, like, and we were talking about this, and I'm not going to go too much in my own story. We can maybe save that for another episode. But like, you know, 4 weeks ago, I was like, hey, there's something that didn't feel right for me. I made a pretty abrupt change, or like I made some switches. 4 weeks later, big change happened. And I'm like, okay, now I'm smart enough to know that I can't stay on that path. Like, something's got to adjust for me to sustain what I'm doing. Like, you know, and that's where a lot of people don't know how to navigate change. It's like, I've been gaining weight steadily, or I'm not happy with my body. I make this aggressive change. I do a challenge fat loss for 30 days. I see great results. And now I'm like, I'm going to keep going. It's like, no, this is not the time to keep going at that rate. Let's slow it down a little bit. You lost 10 pounds in a month. That's faster than I think we want to do this. Like, 1 pound a week, maybe 2 pounds a week is ideal if we're going to make this like more sustainable. But you just lost 2.5 pounds per week. Like, you're going too quickly, right? And oftentimes people don't know how to dial that back when it's time.
Yeah. Well, I think some of that awareness around those slow pains that just add up over time chronically is also what can help drive a little bit more awareness around when it's time to dial back.
Yes, for sure.
But yeah, I mean, some of the things that I've experienced were around the obvious ones like sleep and energy. But I think that really, when it comes to making the decision to make a change, a huge part of that is when it gets to feel like the amount of times you feel shame or down on yourself mentally and emotionally, or just knowing that something's not right, that feeling of like, this isn't right, creeping and creeping and creeping up, that actually was probably the biggest impact for me that really led to me saying, I can't ignore that little voice anymore, and now it's time to shift things.
Yeah. The little voice that's there just gets louder and louder and louder and louder. And that's certainly the one that, in most cases, in my experience, is what pushes people to like start that change. And that really, like, maybe it's like, can you bring some awareness to that like little voice and see how long has that been going on? You know, has it been like a couple weeks, or has it been like a few months? Has it been like a year, where you've just like told yourself the same, that you hear that same story, and it's like, oh wow, like I've been listening to that for a year. Like, something's been off for a year. Like, there's no, I mean, this is going to be hard to change, but like, I'd much rather suffer the change, like the challenge of this change, than to do this for another year where I'm having to listen to this. Yeah.
And then I think one other thing that's important to bring into this conversation is what you mentioned earlier around how when we fully commit to change, it's like when we get to that point where we're like, okay, I need to make a big change. Now I'm seeing the impacts, and oh wow, that actually happened pretty quickly. But it only happens quickly if you fully commit to it.
Yeah. It happens quickly if you fully commit to it. And part of like being able to fully commit to it and experience that change is to like, you know, be totally open to like all of the things that could feel better, you know, not just like, right? Because like, you're not going to lose 10 pounds in a week. You could lose 10 pounds in a month or in 2 months, but in the first week, you're going to feel something physically or mentally or emotionally that's potentially dramatic. It's like, wow, I had a rock solid sleep, or I had like, and then maybe the last thing is like acknowledging that you might not feel great at first when you make the change. Like there's a period of like, maybe it's a week or two where you're like, nothing feels good about this. This is hard.
I am uncomfortable.
I feel uncomfortable. Like if it's the sugar conversation, it's like, well, I've been eating a lot of refined sugar. There's probably a big overgrowth of a certain, of bacteria and yeast in my body. I'm going to starve that bacteria and that yeast for the next 2 weeks, and they're all going to get pissed and die and spit out toxins. And
great. This is sounding awesome.
I'm going to have, potential like digestive issues as a result. Like, yeah, I mean, the what is it, like the keto flu that people talk about? Like that's real. He's like, everything that was living off of sugar in your body is dying, dying, and they're not happy. There's this massive revolt happening, like, give us sugar.
Okay, I don't actually feel that bad right now, so maybe that's coming.
No, maybe, and perhaps maybe it's not, but you just have to leave room for the fact that it might not be, like it's not just like the hard part is not just being like, okay, I'm gonna do it. And like waking up and doing the behavior. It's like waking up, doing the behavior, and like, I just like my stomach hurts, or like I have a headache, or whatever might come with it from a physical standpoint.
Yeah. But I think that the aspect of the mental and emotional relationship with yourself that led to you making that decision is also the thing that feels good about the change, even if your body doesn't notice a positive impact right away.
Yes.
Where it's like,
oh gosh, I love that you said that, because it's like, I have often thought of these periods that I will go through where I'm like, okay, I want to make a change, and I'm, it's like a switch just gets flipped in me. I'm like, okay, I'm doing this thing. Like I've decided, and I'm not going to not, be successful here. And when it's hard, maybe it's like my mantra, or it's like the thing I say to myself. It's like, I chose to do this. I'm doing this. Like I am fulfilling on this behavioral choice, and that's the win. Like whatever else happens, like I just proved to myself that I can do this thing. And if I got the change wrong, if I got the input wrong, like I'll fix that later. But like I'm choosing to do this, and I'm following through, and that makes me like feel powerful and confident and like good about myself. So somebody who's like, I'm going to go and I'm doing this thing. Like I'm going to hit my macros, they do it perfectly for 2 weeks. And then they're like, nothing changed. It's like everything just changed. You just decided you were going to do something. You did it, and you didn't falter. Like if nothing on the body changed, we either need to wait a little longer or we change the numbers. But now you've got that like in the bag. Like you can do this. Like that feels to me more important than the physical outcome. Because if you can string together however many days, weeks, months of like you've done the thing, then it's just a matter of like increasing your knowledge to get on get things moving in the right direction. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, we could say that about physical changes. We could say that about business changes. We could say that about anything. It's like we can get frustrated when like the business metrics aren't moving in the way that we want them to, but it's like, but we're doing our homework every single day. We're hitting our, our goals. Like we're putting out the content. We're doing all the things that we need to do. We just we need to make it. There's one more shift that we need to make, or one more change that we're going to need to make, but we already are doing the stuff. So don't get down on like the result not being there yet. Like you've committed to the behavior. The sugar's out of your house now. It's been out of your house. You've been tempted to buy it when you've gone to the grocery store the last 4 times and you didn't get it. Like that's the win.
Yeah. It's actually in my house still, but I'm not eating it.
Well, that's huge too. It's still in my house and I'm not eating it. Maybe
But
that's
no.
the next stage,
The next stage.
the next tweak when you have a relapse and you're like, shoot, I just
No, I
can't
have
have
to
it in
get
my
out
house.
of my house. I'm not buying it though. But yeah, no, for sure. And I think that that is huge, to have the shift to becoming more the person that you want to be,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that you're in integrity with yourself and that you're committed to following through on what you set out to do, and
Yeah.
have that confidence.
Yeah, and it's like, and if we're focused specifically on diet, I know so much of the perception of diet and making positive changes for your body is connected to or correlated to like deprivation,
Mm-hmm.
like taking something away.
Yeah.
And if that could be shifted to be like, we're not depriving ourselves, we're like, we made a choice, we made a choice to intentionally remove something, and we stuck to it. And that was like that's choice, that's following through on like a behavior or on like an intention through behaviors, which says something about you as a person. It says nothing about like, I need to deprive myself to be successful. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, you need to commit to your, right? And we've seen there's plenty of people we know that can truly flexible diet, like, and they can have indulgences regularly, but it's all through like choice. They're very intentional about it, and it fits into the scope of what creates the body and the feeling and everything that they want. Not like, I'm getting away with this pizza 3 times a week, so why would I stop? It's like, no, I want to feel this way. I want to look this way. I want to perform this way. I want to sleep this way. I want to like all these things. And this is my plan to get there. And pizza fits into that 3 times a week.
Yep.
And I feel freaking awesome, versus like I don't really know any of those things that I want, but like I eat pizza 3 times a week and I still fit into my pants. So like, why would I change that?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you wouldn't change it unless you knew that you wanted to feel a different way. And right now you're not acknowledging that there are maybe other things that aren't feeling right. And fitting into a size 32 pants, like your body can take 10 different shapes and still fit into those pants. Like, and I've never had to like size up or size down a pair of jeans. Like, and there's been times where I'm like, I feel better. I feel worse in these jeans.
Yeah.
Like my waist is filling it out a little bit more, and my legs are not filling it out as much, or my legs are really filling these jeans out. My waist feels, the waist feels kind of loose. It's like, we can look and feel 10 different ways, 100 different ways in the same size 32 jeans.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've had a 15-pound weight fluctuation and still fit in the same pants. It's crazy.
Yeah, right? Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what I mean, is there anything you want to leave our listeners with today, if they're in a position where they're like, I'm not really sure if I'm needing to make a change, or maybe I haven't really, like if there's been some little voice or some pain that they've been experiencing, and they're nervous or scared or really apprehensive about the pain of change that might be coming ahead of them.
Yeah. I think one thing is just that not everything needs to be a superficial motivation. So feeling better, sleeping better, having more energy, and being more in integrity with yourself are all just as positive reasons to commit to a change as, wanting to lose weight and look better, if that's your motivation. So I think just speaking up for those other factors that are really, really, really important and have a huge impact on your health and quality of life is a good thing to think about. And also just that I think as a brand that really promotes this idea of the thinking athlete, this really goes with that in terms of listening to what your inner voice is telling you about how you feel in your body for a multitude of reasons.
Those are great. That's awesome. We'll leave it at that.
Okay.
And thanks for joining us today, everyone. And, as always, if you have questions or topics that you'd love us to dig into, don't be afraid to jump over to Instagram, slide into the DMs, or leave a comment here on YouTube if that's where you're watching.
Yeah, I'm making a list of all the submissions I get in my DMs. I love it.
Nice. All right. See you next time.
Bye.